All righty, I think we are. Hey yo, everybody! So welcome back. It's been a couple weeks since I've been live, and normally I'm just hanging out by myself. But as you know, I brought on a special guest today, and man, we're gonna be talking through quite a bit of stuff. And I'm telling you, like today's been a very busy day. I imagine it has been for you. And man, I'd say the past couple of weeks feel like they're moving at the speed of sound. So much is happening in the land planning space, but also just real estate construction. And just really, truly, there are a lot of incredible people stepping up to the plate to combat the housing crisis from all different angles. And it is incredible. And part of what we're going to be talking about today are the things not to do in the planning stage. Because why do projects fall apart? Why do they succeed? Either good or bad planning. And anyone who has any experience understands that I'd say about 80% of things always fail in the planning stage. And it's never fun. It is never fun to be stuck in that predicament, because at the end of the day, you always want to make sure you're protecting over those who are trusting in you, but also to ensure that you've got really good expectations managed. Because at the end, there's a lot of times where when it comes down to the expectations that you either illustrate to others or that they understand about about what's going on right now, is that as far as what's happening in the current time being, it's amazing to be able to understand that you have the power to maintain that expectation. And so with a lot of the planning and everything else going on, you have the ability to understand what you can do. Hang on one second. All right. So when it comes down to everything that you're working on, we're going to go ahead and we're going to dive into a lot of stuff that normally most folks would probably shy away from. Today we're going to talk about horror stories and things that are not just things that we've seen, but also too, I imagine that you probably experienced as well. And so with that being said, Keith, if you can motion to me, let me know if you're good to go. You just do it. All right. And so with that being said, you guys, we're going to bring on Keith Maxwell with USA Engineering and Surveying, or Surveying and Engineering, and to be able to let's just talk about horror stories and things that have gone wrong. But then how not only were folks able to work from ways out of the trenches, but also to understand exactly what are some good strategies. So as you're commenting, guys, make sure that you hit the link down below. This is we're streaming using StreamYard, and I want to make sure that with us, not just we're streaming over to LinkedIn, but we're also I've got a split screen up too, Keith, so that way I can keep an eye on an eyeball on the LinkedIn comments over there as well. So I want to bring you up on stage, man. And everybody, I thank you so much. Hang on one second. Let me make sure we've got both of our photos here. Well, boom, there we go.
Okay. You got
it, man.
You got me?
Yeah, we're good to go. Man, it's been a tech issue.
Trying to get my screen cleared here I got a different screen up and it's kind of frozen on me. So
whoop.
Technical difficulties. Let me see.
No, you're totally fine. Can you see yourself and can you see me?
StreamYard. Now I can.
Awesome, man. Good to have you here.
My hair is too big, but I'll sit back a little bit.
You're fine. I got big hair, so it kind of goes Johnny Bravo on people all the time. So.
Yeah, you got the big hair day going on.
That's right. But dude, so introduce yourself to everybody and let's just kick things off. I'm going to keep an eye on the comments, but when it comes and on the tail end of introducing yourself, I want you to dive into this question. When it comes to people having success on their projects and the ability to have the solid exit plan, and from what you've seen, how much of that relies on the land planning side of that? Now, hold your answer, but then introduce yourself to everybody and then just take it from there, man.
Okay. Well, have these folks seen our prior videos that we did, or?
No, not yet. So this is just this is a live stream on LinkedIn for everybody coming in. And
Okay.
so so I'm going to keep an eye on comments as far as they're coming in, but I want us to kick this off about sharing horror stories and things that you've seen that have blown up as far as really well-intended projects.
Okay.
And to talk about how much of that, just talk about how much of that weighs on the planning.
Well, I'm very active on LinkedIn, and my profile is there. J, the initial J, as in Johnny, dot Keith Maxwell, and I've got all my stuff there and all about me. But basically, I'm an engineer and a land surveyor, and I've been doing that for going on 35 years. And I was a surveyor first, then an engineer. But I've been doing land development for the most part for over 30 years. So I've seen a lot of things, and my lack of hair is due completely to that, all that time and experience with it. So I may take my glasses off, so I look a lot better without my glasses. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey man, I swear, like whenever I put glasses on, I feel like it boosts my IQ by 10 points. Is that correct or is that false?
Yeah, that's cool. So, but anyway, I appreciate this, and I love to talk about things that happen during land development. That because if there's been a mistake, I've probably been involved in it and doing that kind of stuff. So.
Well, so let's kick it off with some of the horror stories that you've seen. So when it comes to what the biggest thing that you've seen as far as whether it's in the Southeast or wherever, I know you've seen a lot. Oh man, and your wisdom is something I lean on all the time. And when it comes down to the insanity, so kind of going back to the original question, right? It's like what is one of the most well-intentioned projects that you've seen that blew up or fell apart for whatever, but share that, and you don't have to share any names or anything, please don't, but like just to be able to share the overview of what all happened. And did it rely on the planning, or was it more so of other bad actors? Like just kind of what's the first one boom that comes to mind?
I guess when I think of prior projects, I did a lot of my work was in the Auburn, Alabama area. And while I've had a lot of good experiences in Auburn, developing land and things like that, there's also been some bad ones. And, if I'm advising people who are trying to do land development, one of the things that you need to try first, and sometimes it doesn't happen, you need to try to get to know people at the city, especially the engineering department, land planning department, and possibly it might help with the land planning commission, the planning commission, or city council. Now, you're not going to get to be friends with all those people because some of them won't allow that because they put you off. But if you have a good relationship or can form a good relationship, may not be their best friend, but you can have a relationship with the land planning director and the civil engineer, the city engineer. You need to be able to professionally talk to them. Some of the worst projects I had in Auburn had to do with the person that was trying to be the developer getting very cross purposes and crossways, and even cursing, and it got down to
you said so you're trying to connect the dots. So you said that something about we went from connecting with the city and land planners, but then someone said you connect the dots. We shifted gears. I want to make sure that
the person, my client, who was trying to do a land development, and I'm supposed to be representing them as the engineer, my client, the developer, got into shouting matches and threatening litigation and just crazy talking to the people on the city, the planner, the land planner, the planning director, the city engineer, his staff, and even going to planning commission meetings and making just stupid, crazy comments, and also to the city council. So the person I couldn't really represent the person for them going behind me or going here and behind the scenes and just tearing it all up, So you can be your worst enemy, and that's what this guy was. He was his worst enemy, and it doesn't. I mean, I tried to talk him into not coming to the meetings, not even talking to anybody. His attorney, who was a friend of mine too, tried to talk him into not doing anything. She told him, she said, just let me and Keith go to the meetings, and you stay out of it. And the guy would write emails to the people in advance of the meeting. And so they would read to us what he told them in an email in a meeting. And so anyway, it was just hard to help this guy.
Those are hard
to help him because you can't do, you got to be professional. So I guess that's the bottom line. So I say, be professional. When you're dealing with other people, you've got to be professional, and especially if you're asking their permission to do something. You can't just bully your way in and stuff things down people's throats and expect them to be happy with you and go along with everything you want to do. And on the flip side, I've had projects to where I've known and in that case, I knew the people, I knew the city engineer, and I knew the land planner, I knew the people on the planning commission. And I've had very good results with all those people, with other clients. Even got some things through that I didn't think I might be able to get through because of being professional, being friendly, and the client being friendly and willing to do things. And, I had another family there in the same town that was doing land development, and it was a great project. And that family, there was 3 of them, my brothers and sisters. They came to every meeting. They sat in the back. I told them, I told the planning commission, I said, my client, their name, are here, and if y'all have questions for them, please let them know. And so they would sit there and they would be quiet until somebody asked them a question. And then they trusted me to present their case to the planning commission and then later to the city council. So it comes down to, and so this one of my first recommendations is get somebody to represent you that has some experience with that. If you're not a very good people person and very good at speaking in a public meeting and trying to get people and influence people to help on your project, and if you can't explain it well, public meetings are not the place for you to learn this. It's so you should get somebody.
Can we harp on that just for a second? Because how many people are out there that you're seeing that are just seeing people on YouTube? They think it's a good idea, but guess what? The job of the expert is to make it look easy. And so, how much damage control have you had to do for the past, I'd say, 2 to 4 years for people? Or has it been higher than normal since the what you've been doing with the pandemic?
I was just going to say, I really think that people now are, whether that's because of social media or what, it seems everybody now believes they can do things better than anybody else. They can do their own thing. They can be their own lawyer, which they always say what that makes, they can be their own spokesperson. And I don't try to speak for myself. If I'm trying to do something, I try to get somebody else to help me with that. And, like if I have to go to court or do something, I need an attorney. I need an attorney to help me because attorneys are experts on court matters, on law. And so, sometimes you get a bad attorney, but then if you get a good attorney, you end up much better off in court. So, and I want to say the same thing about land development. If you're not used to it, if you don't know what you're doing, if you've never done it before, then you need to get some help. Okay. I talked to a guy just the other day, and he's wanting to do a land development. And he said, hey, I've got this piece of land, and I've already got somebody that's told me they could get 50 lots on it. I said, 50 lots? No. He said, did you say 50? Yeah, maybe he said 50 lots. And I said, well, how much land is it? He said, 59 acres. I said, so did you pay this person to tell you this? Did they do a land plan? Yeah, they did, but they did it for free. I said, well, that doesn't sound right. But then again, he said 59 acres and I can get 53 lots, I think it was. And I said, first of all, I can probably get 120 lots on 60 acres.
At least, like,
easy. Okay. So the guy, you glad you didn't pay for it because you didn't really get what you needed from the guy.
Dang.
So you need an expert. You need somebody.
He did get what he paid for, so
he did, yeah. And
it was a good start point, I imagine.
It's unfortunate. And I'm not, and I wouldn't honestly. I'm at the point in life now to where I'm not trying to get any more work. I'm literally covered up with work. I'm overwhelmed with the amount of work that I have. And so I don't need any more work. And I'm happy to do work if I can get a good client, somebody that appreciates what we do for them and all that. I'm happy to help people do land development, but I don't need any more work. So I'm probably going to get to help this guy. I give him a proposal, and so he can do it. And so I hope to be able to help him. And if I do, I'm going to be able to get him way more lots than he planned to get or thought he was going to get, which means he's going to make another $1 million or so. And so my fees are going to be fairly minimal, to do that. So get some help, get some expertise. And I'm not saying that just because I am an expert. It's just what I've learned. And I've watched people, hundreds of land developers, hundreds over the years, over the last 30 years. I know hundreds, multiple hundreds, go through this process. And each time, in fact, I went to a planning commission. I used to go to planning commission meetings every time they were open in Auburn. And initially, when I moved there to go in business, I went to the meetings just because I wanted to learn. I wanted to see what happens, and so to begin with, I didn't have clients at the meetings. I would see people stand up and try to get something done, and the planning commission would just dismiss them or whatever. I literally, now I'm kind of stupid for this, but I stood up and I helped people with what they were trying to get done.
Right there in the meeting.
They didn't even pay. They weren't paying me. I was just trying to help. And I said, listen, if you couldn't he do this? Couldn't he do this and this and this and this? And it worked. Well, yes. What's your name? So, I said, well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt things, but I was trying to help. And the guy, so I've stood up in meetings and tried to help people get something done because they didn't know what they were doing. Now it was simple. There were some simple things and it just made sense. But the people on the planning commission, planning department, and city engineering, they're not sitting there helping you make your case. Okay. And they're not intended to help you make your case. They're not working for you. Technically, they're working for the city, which technically the city is working for the people who live in the city. Okay. But they're in a position of regulatory agencies are kind of what they are. They're regulating the planning. Yeah, they're regulating the planning development and engineering development for the whole city, for everybody in the city. And most people in the city don't want new development. Once they get in and get their house in their little subdivision, they say, okay, I'm in. I don't care for anybody else to come. I don't want anybody else to come. And you'll know this when you go to a meeting and you see all the neighbors around a proposed development come in and say, we don't want this. We don't want this. And they'll say it they'll use all kind of excuses to say this is why we don't want this. So it's just you need help, and you need somebody to speak for you, and somebody who knows what they're doing, and who maybe have a relationship with the city engineer, the land planners, and the planning commission, and eventually the city council. Now, there's different types of agencies and oversight in different municipalities. And like I said, I say city council because that's just the most common thing I've dealt with. So that's kind of what one of the main things you need somebody to help you with that process. But it really doesn't start there. That's being represented kind of after you start. I mean, one of the things yeah, go ahead.
What would you say are like the top 10 things that people don't need to do when it comes to land planning? Because I know that this is the topic of the whole entire stream for today, because because there's folks that are tuning in and going to catch this replay that are in development, that are real estate agents, new investors, those who are flippers of single family, maybe some that are multifamily. Not a lot of people that flip land yet. But to be able to, this should be able to break down what would be like from worst to least worst, because they're not good.
Well, if you don't know, if you're new at this and you don't know much about it, you need to be able to have somebody to guide you through the process. Okay, the process it's not easy. And it's not extremely hard, but it's not easy. And you have to learn some things. You can't just, it's not like you're going in and all of a sudden you watched a TV show or a YouTube video about pulling teeth, and all of a sudden you can go practice as a dentist. You can't do it. Dentists used to be able to do lots of things. But anyway, this is so
we've got so one of the really quick though, before we go into one of the questions, because Don's had a question about submeters, but I wanted to really quick, as far as let's just do 5. What are 5 things that if you do these 5 things, you will destroy your project every single?
Well, if you draw up a sketch of a piece of land and say, oh, I can get, like I said, it's 20 acres, I can probably get 20 lots out of it. Well, it just depends. If the city says you have to have 1 acre for every lot, you can't get 20 acres out of 20 lots out of a 20-acre parcel. You got to have some roads. So that takes away from it. So, or don't say that, hey, I know I can get, 15,000 square feet. I can build a house on that and put the septic system. You can't, you have to have more, or you have to have other things. You have to have open space. You have to have detention ponds and open areas. You don't know all these things. And more than likely, you have no idea what the zoning information is, what zoning will allow, and what what you're up against as far as dealing with the city. And God, I hate my head looks so big.
Oh, you're good, bro. Hey, don't worry, but hey,
but trying to do your own thing, I guess, is because as a land planner, I can help people, and I tell people this. I've told people this all the time. Once I learned what I was doing, I said, "Look, if you let me help you, I can earn you back the fees you pay me." Okay.
Oh, dude, we have some of that covered in the workshop too. Hey, that's gonna be a killer.
I can save you that much money. So good. So Don is asking a good question here. Do you master meter, then submeter each housing lot? Well, it just depends on what the city will do. If you want to make money off of water, providing water to a development to different housing units or each housing lot, you could. A lot of times when somebody does a master meter, they're trying to get a cheaper rate. And they might say, let's say if it's an apartment complex, and I've done a couple that did this, you won't necessarily put individual meters on the units because you're just going to bill them a flat fee. So you're paying water at a reduced rate for a big development, and then you're going to just bill somebody $25 to $30 a month, just flat fee. Okay, so that's how apartment owners make a little more money for themselves by going that route. They probably save a little money too because they didn't have to put in those sub meters. But it's so it just depends. It depends on what you're trying to do. So I'd ask you more questions about depending on what you're trying to do.
Well, that's also too. I just pulled up, and Don, he does a lot of shopping center. He's with the shopping center group, and so that's where I think, and I think to also just to echo what you're saying too. I mean, because it really depends on not just the use for the placement, but also the asset class. Because RV lots.
If you got a shopping center and you've got, let's say, 10 uses, 10 different shops that you're going to separate out, 10 sub meters, 10 little small meters, and master meter, and to figure out who uses more water, because some uses will use more. If it's an apartment complex, each unit's generally going to use about the same thing. And if you're worried about somebody using more, you're gonna have to make up for that with your water rates. But you wouldn't want to put in 900 separate meters for an apartment complex, in my opinion. Well, 300, because they were 3-bedroom units. So 300 units or 300 different water meters in a development, just to make sure you don't lose a little bit of money there, here and there. If you do the master meter and you bill a certain amount, then next year you end up, hey, we lost $1,000 or whatever. We didn't lose 100,000, but we lost 1,000. So we're going to go up on the rates a little bit next year. So that'll be some of the things you deal with. But if you're a commercial developer, then doing that for a commercial development is probably not a bad idea at all. Because one use, for example, a restaurant will use a lot more water than probably a service station, right?
Right.
So you want to definitely meter those and keep up with that. So,
and Don, comment again. Let me know if that helped. If that answered your question. If not, keep dropping comments, asking questions. As Keith is sharing, it will absolutely pivot and turn and do what you need to help address it.
That's what I pivoted. We was going somewhere else, but Don asked a question, and that's good. So one of the other things I was going to say is when you're doing, I may have lost it in my head, but this is the reason I'm old, and my brain has it loses some things up there sometimes, but I'll come back to it.
No, you're fine. Yeah,
so what do you do?
What was the last part?
I said something you didn't hear.
That's why my telepathy's broken. Sorry, but no, man, I tell you, like looking at all these different asset classes too, because just kind of piggyback on Don's comment, right, about the master sub meters, because we look at we look at 8 and 6 inch water lines, we look at fire flow, we look at everything that needs to be done. But these things, fire flow is probably a new term that most people have never even heard of. And man, you talk about that other project we were working on, right? And I kid you not. And that's actually too, guys. Let me just kind of segue just for a second. And one of the things that Keith and I are launching, just as a halfway point, because we've been live for about going on 45 minutes or so, about 30 minutes now. And one of the things I want to mention, I'm going to play a snippet actually of part of the whole entire workshop we're going to be playing here in a second is designed to take what we're talking about here to a much deeper level, because everyone, including Don and everyone who's watching is going to catch this replay, every one of you is at a different stage and interested in serving different people. That's what this boils down to. Who you want to serve right now, and it could be, spinning the wheel based on numbers, right? Who knows? But that's where, with this workshop, we're going to be diving into a ton of stuff to help you guys unpack what's needed, but also to really dig in. And here's a snippet from that workshop And make sure that you tune in. You go to tinyhomeplug.com/land planning. Make sure to go there when you get a chance. Register, because this whole entire workshop is going to be something to light your world on fire. Stay tuned.
It's big enough for you to drink out of and for you to shower with, but you can't put out a fire. You know,
I mean, how many people do we have telling us, like, I promise you a threat answer, and then with someone above them, like,
it's big enough for the subdivision. That's all you need. No, it's not. So, you know,
actually, hang on. Let's camp out there for a second, because I swear, man, that's something that there's a lot of people that mean. Welcome in. My name is Jeremy. Thank you so much for tuning in for the feasibility study workshop. We are anti-change order, and if you've got land, this is where you want to be at. When it comes to you planning out what you're trying to accomplish, you need everyone hands on deck. That is a turnkey team with the experience that you know that they're not going to try and pigeonhole you into a specific direction in your project. I've seen over 100 million in projects die simply for the fact of the things that we're going to be covering in this workshop. You need people who would understand your business model, not just the building type. You need people who understand different funding options that are not going to be handcuffed by very specific in the box types of approach. And you need a team that can maneuver and pivot without any specific exclusivities from a contractor perspective or from a material perspective. When it comes to ground up construction and land planning, there's much more involved than most people want to admit, just for the sake of trying to lock you up into a contract. With that being said, jump into the workshop with me and join me and my team, and let's unpack every aspect of this. So this way you have a very, very clear path forward. So this way you're not having to endure and take on, recalculate, and try to rebudget for unnecessary change orders. Because here's the thing, here at the Tiny Home Plug, we are anti-change order task force, and that is exactly what we want you to get from when you go through this workshop, to understand how we prevent as many different change orders as possible ahead of time through our planning methodology. I would look forward to seeing you in there, and I appreciate you and your consideration for us.
Hey-o! Was that a commercial?
It was. Yeah, I need to do way better because I'm over here talking like Eeyore in the darn thing, right? But
yeah, I like it. Yeah, that's fine. So let me go back to what you talked about just a second ago, and it did come back to me, because one of the things I always talk to people about, there's two things you need when you do a land development, and that is water and some way to get rid of the water that you put back out, the sewer. Okay, you gotta have a way to get rid of the
one and number two, right?
Yeah, number one and number two. Yeah, so you gotta have water, obviously, to live on. You can drill a well, but most land developments you're going to be doing where there's maybe some water, public water available. Okay, and then as we talked about in that clip that Jeremy showed, when you can have water to drink, but you got to have water for fire flow. Okay. If you don't have a big enough line coming in, it's not going to provide the pressure that you're going to need to put out fires. And if you don't have that, then your insurance is going to be sky high. Okay. Matter of fact, the insurance industry uses this numbering system from 1 to 10, and depending on how much water infrastructure and how much pressure you have and how close to a fire hydrant you are, that depends what your insurance rate is. Okay. So cities, municipalities, always fighting to get their fire rating up to a better level. Okay. So if they're doing this and you're going to build a development, you don't want your fire rating to be low, and you certainly want to be able to put out a fire if it starts somewhere. And it's probably a good chance it's going to. Okay. So fire flow, as we said in that clip, is important in addition to potable water or drinking water. Okay. Now, you got to have certain size pipes to do that. So that's all I'll say. And we can look at specific situations when we start planning. The other thing is the sewer and sewage. it happens. As the Forrest Gump thing said, it happens. So you've got to be able to get rid of that effluent, as we call it in the industry. You got to be able to get rid of that effluent coming from your house, and you can't just run it out onto the ground. We call straight pipe. We got a word for all this stuff. You can't straight pipe it. If you live by the lake, there's a lot of straight pipes going into lakes, and that's frowned upon now. But you can put a septic system on an individual lot. If you got enough room and your soil's okay, you can put an on-site septic system. I've literally designed thousands of those. And I've also, if you're close enough to a city sewer, then hook it into theirs. It's going to cost you a little more every month because they charge every month, but it's worth the trouble in most cases to hook to the city sewer. So that's the two main things there. You need water and sewer. Okay. The other thing that I always look at when I'm buying land, the flood zone. You want to know where the flood zone is, and you want to make sure you're not in the flood zone. You want to make sure your house is not in a flood zone. Okay. Because first of all, your insurance, here's a thing that I didn't even know when I first went to buy my first house. The flood zones and flooding is not covered by insurance. It's not covered by your homeowner's insurance or any other insurance that you buy like that. Flood insurance or flood damage is only covered by flood insurance. And guess who issues flood insurance? FEMA. Okay, FEMA is the underwriter for flood insurance policies. Now, there are a few more. Man, I love that piano over there. That's my house. Okay, so you can have, if you have flood insurance, and you need that if you're even close to a flood zone. If you have flood insurance, then it covers damage from a flood event. Okay, so knowing how close to a flood zone you are, if your house is within a flood zone, don't ever buy a house that's in a flood zone. Okay, even if you say, well, I'll just have to pay insurance. Well, insurance tends to go up. And I have seen insurance on a lake in Lake Martin in Alabama, near Dadeville, Alabama. I've seen insurance as high as $5,000 for a house that was right close to the water. It was a foot above the flood zone, but there was parts of it that touched the flood zone. And so the insurance company said, that's $5,000. Or that's what FEMA said. And this is a brand new house somebody built and didn't ask about it, didn't ask an engineer or surveyor about it, and just built the house. And then all of a sudden they got a $5,000 a year flood policy. So flooding happens, and it doesn't matter if you could be above the flood zone, but you could also have a ditch running by your house. And if it rains somewhere, there's water's going to flow through that ditch. And it doesn't matter if you're in a flood zone or not, and that ditch overflows, you're flooded. That counts. It's not covered by your house insurance. And I found that out very early when I was living in a mobile home. I tried to call I had some water damage, and my insurance agent, who I had for 20 something years after that, he said, it's not covered. So, it's just, these things are important, okay? And if you don't know about all these things, then you don't know what you're dealing with. So bring in somebody that can help you with that process. Now, another thing that Jeremy and I have been talking about are what we call feasibility studies, okay? Now, before you do something, okay, you'd need a plan. Okay, if you fail to plan, then plan to fail. You're going to fail if you don't have a plan. And so when we talk about doing a land development, you want to know what it's going to cost you, and you want to know what you're going to make off of it. If you're not going to make more than it costs you, then why are you doing this, right? So you want to have a profit or the expectation of a profit before you go into the deal, all right? And there's scripture in the Bible that talks about that warns kings that are going to go into war to seek advice from other people that know before you go to war. All right, consider what you're doing. Is there an outlook for you to make money on it before you go into it? Okay, so you want to know, if you want to look at the land, you want to have a lot layout, figure out how many lots am I going to get. Then you talk to a real estate agent. How much can I get for those lots? How much are you getting for other lots like this in town? Okay. Then you talk to so realtor gives you an idea about the outlook for the number of lots, and then you need to talk to a contractor. You need to know some contractors to try to figure out what is it going to cost to build this road. I've seen roads built for $100 per linear feet. Then I've also seen roads that cost $450 a linear foot. Okay. So if you're going to build a little small development and it's going to cost you $450 a foot to build a road, then you want to get as many lots out of that to help pay for that road. So you just got to know, well, and it comes down to, did you put in curb and gutter? Did you have to put in storm pipe? Are you putting in an 8-inch water main, or do you have to put in a 40-inch water main? You're not going to do that for a small development, but are you going to have, here's another one. Are you going to have to put in a traffic signal, a stoplight, sometimes called, but traffic signal? Are you going to have to put in a traffic signal at the intersection a mile away from your house or away from your development, because you are putting too many people on the street system? I did a apartment complex in Auburn one time, and what we had to do, one of the things we had to do is do a traffic study. And so we had to study and say, okay, how much traffic or how many trips are we going to be creating with this 900 bedroom community? How much is that going to put on this street system that's already built here? And we've got a traffic signal down the road here that's already operating at a low level of service. There's level of services between A and E, and E is terrible, not operating at all. That's worse than F. Anyway, so we did the traffic study, and we saw we were going to put another 2,000 trips a day into this neighborhood. And so the city says, well, you're going to have to change this whole intersection over here. You got to add another traffic signal. You got to add a lane, a left turn lane, a right turn lane. So there's a lot of things that they made this developer do before they would allow them to even start the development. Okay. And so the developer had to pay for that. I had another developer that had to literally build 2 miles of road. And not only did he have to build it himself and pay for all that to get to his development, because he was at the end of on a dirt road. Okay. He had to build over a half mile of that road, went through another landowner that didn't have to participate in that road. But the city had him over a barrel. Let's use the term over a barrel instead of another term that I could use. But the city had him over a barrel. And so
I'll hold the fist up when you do that, man.
Over the barrel. Yeah, I'll say it that way. So anyway, he had no choice to do it if he wanted to do the development. Now, he did that and agreed to it, and the development turned out okay after he bankrupted and somebody else took it over. That's
well, and let's actually let's talk about easements and stuff, because a lot of people I've seen a lot of people buy land bank properties, tax lien, stuff that's cheap, right? Just because. And there's a whole community that's out there buying random stuff in the middle of the desert and just random stuff in the middle of the city. without even doing due diligence. And I genuinely, and it breaks my heart whenever I see folks do this, but they buy land just to seem cool or to be a trend or whatever, just for fill in the blank, whatever the reason is for buying land and having to, with it being landlocked essentially. So what is, I mean, dang, that, holy crap, holy cow, man, that with the guy going bankrupt like that, and it happens
Yeah.
I mean, did he not, from what you could see, was it more so like he didn't have it penciled correctly, or what was
He was and believe it, this guy was he was a real estate agent, a real estate broker, even had lots of experience, and he just, I personally, it's my opinion, the city pretty much bankrupted him.
they dragged it on politics almost.
I think they should have made the guy in the middle that owned 3/4 of a mile of the road that was built for free. He should have had to at least put up some kind of bond that says, if I ever develop this land, I'll pay for my 3/4 of a mile of road, but they didn't do that. So it's like, if you want to come in, you got to do all these things, and everybody else just gets the free ride. Well, that's my opinion. I've always worked for the developer, not for the. Very rarely do I work for the city. But if you're going to buy a piece of land, all of my thinking and all my thoughts so far have been for somebody who's looking to develop a little subdivision development. And generally, in my mind, as I was talking about that, you already have access to a public road some way. Now, so that might need to be listed now. When you're buying a piece of land, there are pieces of land that are landlocked, which means they don't have access publicly to a public road. Okay, so if you don't have access, you can't develop that. You can sue for access. I've seen people do it. I've helped people do it. If you own a 10-acre tract of land that got landlocked somehow, okay, maybe there's an old dirt road that goes into it or whatever, but you don't have a lease or an easement for that dirt road, okay, you can sue the owner of the land that the dirt road goes through, or you can sue for an easement through court. And you can get a 30-foot wide strip of land, okay? A 30-foot easement. That's a minimum that they give you. But as far as I know, there's no cities that will let you put a public road on 30 feet of land, okay? So to build a subdivision development, to divide land up into more than one lot, you've got to have a public road going into it. And most of the time, cities require you to have each lot to have access to that public road by some width, 40 feet, 50 feet, whatever. So that road's got to be built all the way into the development. And so, but you can't get a public road 50-foot wide right of way or 60 foot in the counties. You can't get a public road on 30 feet of land. Okay. So getting a private easement for getting in and out, we call it ingress and egress, or for access, you can get a 30-foot strip of land. Okay. It might be difficult and it might have to pay for it, but you can get it. Okay. But you can't build a public road on 30 feet of land. So if you're going to go do development, one of the main things you need is access to. Okay. So that's my fourth thing I'm writing down on my piece of paper. I had to get my brain. My brain has to be listed these days. But so I've said water, sewer, flood, access. Okay. Now, you got to have access to build that road. Okay. There's also access that you got to have for utilities. All right. So if you got to have a way to tie your sewer to the city system, you might have to go through somebody else's land to get to that sewer somewhere. You're going to have to pay for that easement that goes through somebody else's land, And I've seen public institutions, let's say that, public institution charge people thousands and thousands of dollars to put a line 100 feet through their land to tie to a sewer. Okay. It was probably it was a fair deal. But anyway, let's say you need access to water. Same thing. Okay. You got a water line coming down over here. It's only 2 inches. I got an 8-inch over here on the other side of 3 properties. I need to connect to that 8-inch because I can't do fire flow off 2-inch. Okay. So you got to have access for not only for ingress, egress, get in and out with your car. You got to have access to utilities. Okay. So utilities is something, and by the way, just about all these things are handled or spoken to if you go to buy a piece of land and it's considered commercial property and you have to do what's called an ALTA survey, ALTA, ALTA land survey. It's always done for commercial property. And one of the parts of that ALTA survey is title searches, and title search looks for easements and anything that goes across the property, and it talks about things that serve the property. Okay, so when I do ALTA surveys, a lot of them, and all over the country, and so when we get that title commitment, it has a list of all of the utilities that go across the property. It has a list of all the easements that are recorded on that piece of property. And if I see something on the survey that we do, then we need to make sure that the landowner knows you don't really have this type of easement, or you don't have access to this. Or when we go out there, we see there's a driveway that's across your property, and there's nothing about that in these easements. There's nothing listed. That's an apparent easement that somebody has given and let somebody else drive across that land. Okay. I've seen property that's in the middle of a shopping center or on the edge of a shopping center had frontage on 2 roads. Okay. But the city wouldn't let anybody tie to that road from this piece of out parcel right here. You had to go through the development, through the shopping center, and go out onto the side street, and there was no easement for that. None. So when this guy was buying it, I said, look, you don't have access. And when the bank or somebody else looks at a piece of land and they say, well, he's got 200 foot of frontage on this road and 200 foot of frontage on this road, but you don't have access because the city blocked it off and said, you can't access this road. You can't put a driveway in that close to an intersection and a traffic signal. Okay. So they made the people go out. Now, the people that own the restaurant to begin with, they already knew that because they own the shopping center. Okay. Yeah. But now a separate individual is going to own the restaurant, not the shopping center. So they had to have a dedicated easement. Okay. So that was something that we've worked out as part of that ALTA survey. And we advised the client, said, look, you don't have access. So they said, well, what can we do? What can we do? Because we want to close next week. I said, well, get them to give you an easement, So if you didn't know about that, that's why ALTA surveys, a lot of times ALTA surveys are done for commercial property so that you can find issues like that, in that process. So
Mackenzie, welcome in, man. He's with Lennar Homes, and we had somebody else come in as well. I'm monitoring a lot of stuff right now.
Cool.
And so I think we got some other folks going on. I have 3 folks watching over on LinkedIn. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. And so as you guys are watching and also catching the replay, make sure that you add your questions to the comments, because if you're tuning in late, you've already missed so much gold. It's insane. And that being said, if you just as a reminder, make sure that you tune in and you also register for the workshop. It's in the comments over there on LinkedIn. Go there, drop your info. Don't be weird about it. We're fine. We're regular folks. And I tell you, man, we're going to be going through and unpacking a lot. No matter if you're an agent, a developer, if you are in the excavation business, if you're an agent or it's just a broker, like if you're getting started, if you just got your real estate license and you want to learn land planning, guess what? Well, the leverage is in the planning.
It makes you more valuable. I guarantee you, if you're a real estate agent. And I went and took the 60-hour real estate course because I wanted to know what they teach the real estate people. I wanted to know what they teach you. I used it as continuing education But
Yeah.
it was a really good course. 60 hours is a long time spent in a class. I really believe I learned a lot. I taught the day that they did about surveying and property and section township ranges. I taught that part of that for the guy. But you want to know about that. And as a real estate agent, I believe you need to know as much as you can about land and about property and about development. I mean, you can sell a house that's already in a subdivision and everything's done, but there may be some problems with that house, like flood zones. The very first thing as a real estate agent you need to learn, flood zone. How do I find out what flood zone this property's in? Any property's in. And there's a way to do that through FEMA. There's maps for that. Okay. And then if you don't know, go talk to a local surveyor, especially if you use that surveyor to do surveys for you. Get him to talk to you, tell you about flood zones, And if you give them a lot of business, say, hey, I'm going to send you some. Every time I list a house, you tell me if it's in a flood zone or not.
What's the oh, go ahead. Sorry. Let me cut you off.
Well, I was going to say, when you go to a closing, they give you a piece of paper that they say all the things that you had to pay for. And there's a thing on there that says $15 for us determining if you were in a flood zone or not.
What's the craziest change order that you've seen? And guys who are just tuning in, change orders, I mean, I'm not insulting any of you who are experienced to know what a term of a change order is. I share it for those who don't. Change order is whenever it wasn't in the original plan that gets then invoiced. What is the largest change order that you've had to issue out because of somebody's lack of planning? Or, I mean, that technically is from something in the beginning, but or I would even say for yourself or from what you've seen issued out, what's the largest change order due to floodplain issues that you've seen?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, if you have if you're in a flood zone and you buy the house, okay, and you didn't know you were in a flood zone or whatever, let's say you buy it with cash. If you buy a house with cash, and some people have cash, I don't know many of them, but some people have a lot of cash, and so they go buy a house. Let's say I'm going to buy an acre of land that's on the lake, all right? And then I'm going to go build me a house. I'm using cash.
Keith, really quick. What's just one number though? Like, what's the largest change order you've seen?
Well, I mean, that could cost you the whole house or $500,000 or whatever. But
I'm saying, what is your personally? What have you seen as the largest largest change order or issue that had to be adjusted in the middle of the project?
I don't have any numbers in my head because some of those things are not important to me every day. I have to let them go because I forget how to get home.
But was it like $500,000 or what was that? I'm just trying to share with folks how bad.
I've seen $500,000 errors and things that go wrong. I've seen bigger than that, depending on what type of construction it was. There could be, if you're going to build an apartment building and you don't stake it out, or let's say a gas station. I had a guy that used to build all kind of gas stations and convenience stores and whatever all over town, and then he would never call the surveyor to get them to do stakeout to make sure he got it on the right lot or got it in, and so all of a sudden the city comes out, takes a tape measure, measures. Well, your gas pumps are over the setback. They're supposed to be set back, 35 feet from the property line, and they're 15 feet from the property line. So you got to go to the Board of Zoning Adjustments, and then you got to have a surveyor show on a drawing and show all this. And so I tried to tell the guy, I said, look, if you just called me first, I would have staked it out. It would have been in the right place. But you're being a finance major. You wouldn't call me because you know how to do it because you've been doing this so many times. And every time you do it, you have to call me and let me fix something for you. So he just wouldn't call in advance. He said, I'm going to call you from now on. So he'd call me the next time. He called me one time, then he stopped calling me again. Then he has another one. Got a problem, same way. But he was one of those people who like to ask for forgiveness instead of asking permission,
Oh, God. I mean, if the gas pumps are on the, oh, Lord.
You know, let's just think if you had got it off or put something over a utility line, or if you got it off onto somebody else's property. Yes, that's very expensive. I saw the power company pay a guy $300,000 one time because of a power line that was put over his property, and they said $300,000 because it limited this guy what he could do. They didn't want to tear it down, put it somewhere else, so they said we'll just pay you. So $300,000. That's not a big deal for a power company, right? So there's all kind of mistakes you can make if you don't know what you're doing and you don't find out and have some help in doing the development. There's all kinds of problems. I'll give you one that. Here's another one that's if you don't get a geotechnical engineer to do some investigation of the dirt that you're going to build on. If you're trying to build a road or you're trying to build houses or whatever, and you've got this little piece of land, and I've recommended dozens of times, I've recommended a land developer get a geotechnical engineer to come in and poke some holes in the ground, poke some holes. And they won't do it. They didn't do it, and they said, no, we don't need that. Okay, whatever. But I recommended it to you, and I put it in writing, okay? So then you come back, and you're putting in sewer line, and you got to put sewer line in sometimes. Maybe you got to be 6 feet deep. Sometimes you got to be 12 feet deep to get it to drain and flow somewhere. And then they start digging. The contractor starts digging, hits rock.
Yep.
Granite. Hits hard rock. Granite. So now what do you got to do? Well, the sewer line still got to go in because you got to have sewer for the houses, right? So you got to drill holes every 25 feet, and you got to put dynamite down in those holes, and you got to blast, get the rock cracked up, get a backhoe in there that'll dig that rock out 12 feet deep or whatever the depth is, and rock excavation costs way more than dirt excavation, okay? So all of a sudden you might have 500,000. I mean, it's the costs are just amazingly high for doing blasting and rock excavation. All right. But you got to do it because you got to have sewer and you got to go to that place. Now there maybe there's options. There may be some options, but I put in pump stations, pump sewage. And when you pump sewage and use what's called a force main, and we pump sewage through a smaller line, you can put that up closer to ground, to the surface, and pump it, and then drop it in a manhole here. The city doesn't want you to do that. They don't want you to do that because the pump station ends up being their responsibility. So the city's got to maintain that pump station. Okay, so you got to do the rock. Okay, so you put yourself in a corner because you didn't want to spend. Maybe it was $10,000-$15,000 to do the geotechnical testing. That just all we get is drill me a hole 20 feet deep or 15 feet deep, and figure out if I got rock. And if I got rock, I got to plan that in my construction budget, maybe to get to the bank to pay this. Okay, but you need to know what's below the ground, okay, before you start building or planning to build. So here's my geo, okay? So geo is my 4, 5. So that's the 5th item I'm putting on my list here, okay? So, I take that back. My first item was planning and land planning and things like that to try to make sure we do enough investigation to see if you can build more houses or whatever. Do the best job at land planning, and then I think I said something about the local municipality, whoever is controlling the development. So I said those 2 things before I started on water and sewer. Okay. So let's see. The list is up to 6, 7 or so right now.
I mean, because I had a feel we were going to get through all of them anyway, so you're good, man. And
Yeah.
we could do that for another episode as well, because I mean, there's so much that for 2 weeks from today we'll do another one if you want to, if you're up for it, and then that way we just get more folks in to ask questions, because that's what this is all about. These live streams, we only do these live on LinkedIn, and then everywhere else they get about half the episode. And then we're going to be uploading all of this. We'll actually be deleting this from LinkedIn by next week. So everyone who attended, make sure you get the replay and you watch it through until next Wednesday, because it's going to be gone by the time on next Thursday. So make sure you guys
have questions. And if you have questions, something you want us to talk about next time, I'd love to see that. I go off and start talking and keep talking about things and get sidetracked sometimes too, but I'm happy to talk about anything you want to talk about. So,
dude, that's what I love that you're a part of the team. Golly, man, I can't wait for us to launch the things that we're about to kick off, especially with the membership of teaching people on the things of land planning, the terminology, why, like all of the moving pieces. Like there's a lot of stuff that we're breaking down for those who are just trying to understand and wrap their hearts and minds around what this is and where it plays in the entire development spectrum. Because there's a lot of stuff that, I mean, even if you don't end up becoming a land planner, I mean, who cares, right? You need to know this, like you need to learn typing back when computers came out, like really, truly. Because the where things are evolving to, you need to be able to sharpen your skills. And the biggest thing about the membership too is that we're going to be giving folks live feedback on deals that they're looking at, just making sure that it's a good, solid deal, because then all the members are going to get a discount on the feasibility studies, just as far as that goes. Only the members are going to get that, and keep that, I told you that. But it's not going to be anything insane, but we're going to be able to give you guys something to ease your brain. But then also, too, you get a discount on the custom floor plans and the floor plans that we're about going to be launching here soon. And so, guys, for real, check out the replay. Even if you came in late, who cares? At least you got here, okay? And so, that's where any comments, we're going to be, once this live is gone, we're going to repost this session, but a snippet of it, but the whole entirety of it's going to be in the back end of the membership for you guys to study and to unpack, and we're going to be able to make sure you guys have support that you need. So all that to be said, we're launching a workshop that's going to be we have a membership. We're launching the workshop that you may have saw here a second ago, but definitely go and check it out, tinyunplug.com/land planning. Make sure you go register, save your spot, because you think today was awesome. Keith breaks down a lot of stuff when it comes to utilities, and like the things that you take for granted, most people would cherish to forget, right? It's like it's just amazing how much stuff that you've gone through, you've seen, and I mean it's just a testament to your experience, man.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, dude, I appreciate your time, and you know what? We'll just go out with a bang real quick, and we'll just go ahead and replay one of the sessions that's in the workshop for you guys. Guys, seriously, go check out the freaking workshop. And Keith, again, dude, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you as a human being, man.
Okay. Thanks, man.
Hey,
it's big enough for you to drink out of and for you to shower with, but you can't put out a fire.
I mean, how many people do we have telling us, like, I promise you a threat answer, and then when someone above them, like,
it's big enough for the subdivision. That's all you need. No, it's not. So,
actually, hang on. Let's camp out there for a second, because I swear, man, that's something that there's a lot of people that mean. Here we go. God, it's seriously
smart. Yeah.
So what?
That guy sounds smart.
Anyway. He resembles it too, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks,
We'll do it again.
All
right. Everyone, make sure you guys check the replay, add your comments, and do not miss out for the next section we're going to have in 2 weeks from today.